My hands shook as I stared at the police officer standing at my door. Behind him, I could see my cousin Derek's car in the driveway. This couldn't be happening. Sarah Mitchell? You're under arrest for the theft of $50,000 from Mitchell Family Hardware, the officer said, reading from his notebook. My heart dropped. Our family business? The store my grandfather built from nothing? I looked past the officer to see Derek stepping out of his car, his face serious, but his eyes, something was wrong with his eyes. They looked almost satisfied. There has to be a mistake, I whispered. I would never steal from my own family. The officer pulled out handcuffs. We have evidence, ma'am. Your cousin Derek Mitchell filed the report this morning. He says money has been missing for weeks and all evidence points to you. Derek walked up behind the officer. I'm sorry, Sarah. I didn't want to believe it either, but the bank records don't lie. The money was transferred to an account in your name. I stared at my cousin in shock. We grew up together. We were best friends. How could he think I would do this? Derek, you know me. I would never. The evidence is clear, he said, looking away. I had no choice. As the handcuffs clicked around my wrists, I knew my life was about to change forever. The next few days were a nightmare. My parents wouldn't even look at me when I was released on bail. My mom cried every time she saw me, and my dad just shook his head in disappointment. How could you do this to us? My father asked, his voice breaking. This business is everything to our family. I didn't do it, Dad. You have to believe me. But he turned away. The bank records don't lie, Sarah. The money was in your account. My boyfriend Marcus was waiting for me when I got home. I thought he would be my support, but his face told a different story. Is it true? He asked quietly. Of course not. How can you even ask me that? He sat down heavily on my couch. Sarah, everyone is talking about it. My boss asked me about it at work. This is affecting my career too. So you believe them over me? Marcus looked at me with sad eyes. I don't know what to believe anymore. Maybe we should take a break until this all gets sorted out. I watched him walk out of my life, taking my heart with him. In just 2 days, I had lost my job, my family's trust, and the man I loved. But the worst part was the look in Derek's eyes. Something about it didn't feel right. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Derek's face when the police arrested me. There was something off about his expression. He looked relieved, almost happy. I decided to start my own investigation. If the police wouldn't believe me, I would have to prove my innocence myself. The first thing I did was call the bank. They confirmed that $50,000 had been transferred to an account in my name, but when I asked for more details, they said I would need to speak with the police. Next, I drove to the hardware store. Derek was behind the counter, talking to an insurance agent. When he saw me, his face went pale. Sarah, you shouldn't be here, he said quickly. This is still my family's business, Derek. I have a right to be here. The insurance agent looked uncomfortable. I should go. We'll finish this conversation later, Mr. Mitchell. After the agent left, Derek turned to me. What do you want? I want to know how you think I could steal from our own family. When would I have had access to that much money? Derek's eyes darted around the store. You had access to the books. You helped with the accounting sometimes. That was true, but something felt wrong. Derek, we've been like brother and sister our whole lives. Do you really think I'm capable of this? For a moment, his face softened. Then he hardened again. The evidence doesn't lie, Sarah. Over the next few weeks, I started paying closer attention to Derek. Something about his behavior was bothering me, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. He had always been the responsible one in our family. He took over the hardware store when my uncle got sick, and everyone trusted him completely. But lately, he seemed different. At family dinner on Sunday, I noticed he kept checking his phone. When my aunt asked about the insurance investigation, he got nervous and changed the subject quickly. The insurance company needs to do their own investigation, he said. It's just standard procedure. But they'll pay for the stolen money, right? My aunt asked. Derek nodded, but he looked uncomfortable. Eventually, yes. These things take time. I also noticed that Derek had been spending more money lately. He bought a new car last month, and my aunt mentioned he was planning to renovate his house. Where is Derek getting all this money? I asked my mom later. She looked at me sadly. Sarah, honey, you need to focus on your own problems right now. Derek is doing his best to keep the business running after what happened. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Derek was acting guilty, but everyone assumed it was because he felt bad about turning me in. What if there was another reason? I was cleaning out my desk at home when I found an old photo of Derek and me at the hardware store. We were both teenagers, helping our grandfather during summer vacation. Looking at the photo, I remembered something important. Derek had always been jealous of me. Our grandfather clearly favored me, and Derek knew it. When grandfather died, everyone expected him to leave the store to me, but instead he left it to my uncle, Derek's father. Derek never said anything, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. Then I remembered something else. A few months ago, Derek had asked me about setting up online banking for the business. I helped him with the paperwork, and I remembered giving him my information as a backup contact. My heart started racing. What if Derek used my information to set up an account in my name? I called the bank again, this time asking for more specific details about when the account was opened. The representative said she couldn't give me details over the phone, but she confirmed that the account was opened 3 months ago. That was right around the time I helped Derek with the banking paperwork. I needed to see those bank records, but I knew the police wouldn't share them with me. I needed to find another way. That night, I made a decision. I was going to break into Derek's house and look for evidence. I knew Derek's schedule perfectly. Every Tuesday night, he went to play poker with his friends. He would be gone for at least 4 hours. My hands were shaking as I used the spare key I knew he kept under the garden gnome by his back door. If I got caught, I would be in even more trouble, but I had to know the truth. Derek's house was neat and organized, just like always. I started with his home office, looking through his desk drawers and filing cabinets. At first, I didn't find anything unusual. Just normal bills and business paperwork. But then I found a folder labeled insurance that made my blood run cold. Inside were documents about insurance policies for the hardware store. Derek had increased the theft coverage 6 months ago, right around the time the money started disappearing. But that wasn't the worst part. At the bottom of the folder, I found a piece of paper with my personal information on it. My social security number, my address, even my mother's maiden name. This was exactly the kind of information someone would need to open a bank account in my name. I took pictures of everything with my phone, my heart pounding. I was finally getting somewhere, but I needed more evidence. As I was putting the folder back, I heard a car door slam outside. Derek was home early. I froze as I heard Derek's key in the front door. There was no way I could get out through the back door without him seeing me. I quickly put the folder back and looked around the office for a hiding place. The closet was too obvious, and there was no way I could fit under the desk. "Hello," Derek called out. "Is someone here?" I held my breath and crept toward the window. It was on the 2nd floor, but there was a tree branch close enough that I might be able to reach it. I could hear Derek's footsteps coming up the stairs. He was checking each room, getting closer to the office. With no other choice, I opened the window and climbed out onto the narrow ledge. The branch was about 3 feet away. If I missed, I would fall into the bushes below. I jumped. The branch held, and I climbed down as quietly as I could. Through the office window, I could see Derek looking around the room with a flashlight. He knew someone had been there. I ran to my car and drove home, my heart still racing. I had the insurance documents, but I needed more evidence. And now Derek was suspicious. The next morning, I got a text from him, "We need to talk." I knew I was in trouble, but I also knew I was getting close to the truth. Derek was waiting for me at the coffee shop downtown. He looked tired and worried, not like the confident cousin I had known my whole life. "Someone broke into my house last night," he said as soon as I sat down. I tried to look surprised. "That's terrible. Did they take anything?" "No, but they went through my office." "Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. "What do you want to know? Did you break into my house?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "Why would I do that?" Derek studied my face for a long moment. "Because you're trying to prove you're innocent." "But Sarah, Breaking into someone's house isn't going to help your case. I didn't break into your house, Derek. But I am trying to prove my innocence. Because I know I didn't steal that money. Derek looked down at his coffee. The evidence. Forget the evidence for a minute, I interrupted. Look me in the eyes and tell me you really believe I could steal from our family. Derek was quiet for a long time. When he finally looked up, I saw something I hadn't seen before. Guilt. I want to believe you, he said quietly. But if you didn't take the money, then who did? I leaned forward. That's what I'm trying to figure out. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the look in Derek's eyes. For the first time since this all started, he seemed to doubt himself. I decided to take a different approach. Instead of focusing on Derek, I would focus on the money trail. I called my friend Jessica, who worked at a different bank. She couldn't access the records from my bank, but she could give me advice about how to track suspicious transactions. If someone opened an account in your name, there should be paperwork, she said. They would need a copy of your ID, proof of address, things like that. But I never gave anyone that information. Then they either stole it or copied it without your knowledge. Think about when you might have given your information to someone you trusted. That's when I remembered the banking paperwork I had helped Derek with. I had given him copies of my ID and utility bills as backup contacts for the business accounts. He had everything he needed to open an account in my name. The next day, I went to the bank in person. I explained my situation to the manager and asked to see the documents used to open the account. At first, she said she couldn't show me anything without a court order. But when I explained that I was the victim of identity theft, she agreed to let me see the signature card. The signature looked like mine, but something was off. The way the S was written was slightly different from how I normally signed my name. Can I get a copy of this? I asked. The manager nodded. I'll need to file a report about possible identity theft. I walked out of the bank with my first real piece of evidence. The signature was close, but it wasn't mine. I took the signature card to a handwriting expert downtown. Mrs. Chin had been analyzing handwriting for the police department for 20 years. This is interesting, she said, examining the signature under a magnifying glass. Someone tried very hard to copy your signature, but there are several differences. She pointed to various parts of the signature. See how the pressure is different here? And this letter is formed differently than in your real signature. So you can prove I didn't sign this? I can prove that someone else signed your name. But to hold up in court, I would need samples of the real forger's handwriting to compare it to. I knew exactly where to get samples of Derek's handwriting. The hardware store had years of his handwritten notes and orders. That evening, I went to the store after hours. I still had a key, even though I wasn't supposed to be there. I found Derek's order book and copied several pages of his handwriting. I also found old birthday cards he had written to various family members over the years. The next morning, I brought everything to Mrs. Chin. Give me a few days to analyze this, she said. If this Derek person forged your signature, I'll be able to prove it. I left her office feeling hopeful for the first time in weeks. I was finally building a case. But I still needed to figure out how Derek had moved the money and why he had done it. While I waited for the handwriting analysis, I decided to dig deeper into Derek's finances. I couldn't access his bank records, but I could look at his spending patterns. I drove past his house and noticed the new car in the driveway. It was an expensive sedan, much nicer than anything Derek could normally afford on his salary from the hardware store. I also remembered my aunt mentioning his house renovation plans. That would cost thousands of dollars. I decided to visit my aunt and ask some casual questions about Derek's recent spending. Oh, Derek's doing so well, she said proudly. He got a big bonus from the insurance company for his work on the theft case. They were impressed with how quickly he discovered the missing money. A bonus from the insurance company? That didn't sound right. How much of a bonus? I asked. He didn't say exactly, but it must have been substantial. He's planning to redo the kitchen and buy new furniture. After I left my aunt's house, I called the insurance company. I pretended to be Derek's assistant and asked about the bonus. I'm sorry, but we don't give bonuses to policy holders, the representative said. We only pay out claims after our investigation is complete. So Derek had lied to his mother about where the money came from. He was spending money he shouldn't have, and he was lying about it. I was getting closer to the truth, but I still needed more evidence. Mrs. Chin called me 3 days later with the results of her handwriting analysis. "It's a match," she said. "The person who forged your signature is the same person who wrote these other samples. Your cousin Derek definitely opened that bank account in your name." I felt a mix of relief and anger. Relief that I finally had proof of my innocence, and anger that Derek had betrayed me so completely. "Will this hold up in court?" I asked. "Absolutely. I'll prepare a full report for your lawyer." The next step was figuring out how to use this evidence. I could go to the police, but I wanted to confront Derek first. I wanted to hear him admit what he had done. I also wanted to understand why he had done it. Derek and I had been close our whole lives. How could he destroy my life to save himself? That evening, I called Derek and asked him to meet me at the hardware store. I told him I wanted to talk about maybe working together to figure out who really stole the money. "I've been thinking about what you said," I told him. "Maybe we can solve this together." Derek sounded relieved. "I'd like that, Sarah. I hate how this has torn our family apart." We agreed to meet at the store at 8 p.m. after closing time. I was finally going to get the truth. I arrived at the hardware store early and set up my phone to record our conversation. I needed Derek to confess on tape. I was nervous but determined. This was my chance to get my life back. Derek arrived right on time, looking tired and stressed. He had been carrying this secret for months, and it was clearly wearing on him. "Thanks for wanting to work together on this," he said as he unlocked the door. "I know this has been hard on everyone." We sat down in the office where our grandfather used to work. Looking around at the familiar surroundings, I felt sad that it had come to this. "Derek, I need to ask you something," I began. "And I need you to be completely honest with me." He nodded. "Of course. When you filed that police report, were you completely sure I had stolen the money?" Derek was quiet for a moment. "The evidence pointed to you. The bank account was in your name. But did you ever consider that someone else might have opened that account?" Derek's face went pale. "What do you mean?" "I mean, someone would need my personal information to open an account in my name. Someone I trusted." Derek stood up quickly. "Sarah, what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that maybe you should tell me the truth about what really happened to that money." Derek stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the internal struggle on his face. Finally, his shoulders sagged in defeat. "How did you figure it out?" he asked quietly. "The handwriting expert confirmed that you forged my signature. And the insurance company told me they don't give bonuses to policyholders." Derek sat back down heavily. "I never meant for it to go this far." "Then why did you do it?" Derek put his head in his hands. "The store was failing, Sarah. We were 3 months behind on rent, and suppliers were threatening to cut us off. I needed money to keep the business alive." "So you stole it?" "I borrowed it," he said quickly. "I was going to pay it back before anyone noticed. But then the insurance company started asking questions, and I panicked." "So you decided to frame me instead?" Derek looked up at me with tears in his eyes. "I didn't know what else to do. If the insurance company found out I took the money, they wouldn't pay the claim. The business would be ruined, and our whole family would lose everything." "So you decided to ruin my life instead?" I thought maybe you would just get a slap on the wrist. I didn't think they would actually arrest you." I stared at my cousin in disbelief. "You destroyed my relationship with my family. You cost me my job and my boyfriend. You made me a criminal." Derek was crying now. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry." I looked at Derek crying and felt a mix of anger and pity. This was the cousin I had grown up with, the person I had trusted more than anyone. "Derek, you have to make this right," I said. "I know. I'll confess everything. I'll tell the police the truth." "When?" Derek wiped his eyes. "Soon. I just need some time to figure out how to tell my parents." "No," I said firmly. "You're going to call the police right now, or I'm going to do it for you." Derek looked panicked. "Sarah, please. Give me a few days. I need to get a lawyer. Via you part of the insurance payout when it comes through." "Derek, you're not getting an insurance payout. You're going to prison." Derek's face went white. "Prison? Identity theft, fraud, filing a false police report. You're looking at years in prison. Derek stood up and started pacing. There has to be another way. What if I just confess to taking the money but don't mention the fake account? Then I'm still a criminal in everyone's eyes. Derek stopped pacing and looked at me desperately. Sarah, I'll do anything. Please don't destroy my life. You destroyed mine first. I looked at Derek begging for mercy and realized I had a choice to make. I could call the police right now and watch him get arrested, or I could make him pay in a different way. I'll give you one chance, I said. But you have to do exactly what I say. Derek nodded eagerly. Anything. First, you're going to call the police and tell them you made a mistake. You're going to say you found new evidence that proves I didn't steal the money. Okay. Second, you're going to confess to everyone in our family that you wrongly accused me. I can do that. Third, you're going to pay back every penny you stole, plus interest. Derek looked worried. Sarah, I don't have that kind of money. Then you better figure out how to get it. And if I do all of this, you won't go to the police? I smiled coldly. Derek, I'm not going to let you off that easy. You're going to confess everything in front of our entire family at Sunday dinner this week. Derek's face went pale. In front of everyone? Everyone. Mom, Dad, all our aunts and uncles, our grandparents. You're going to tell them exactly what you did and why you did it. And then we'll see what happens. Maybe our family will forgive you. Maybe they won't. But either way, everyone will know the truth. Derek sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. Okay, I'll do it. Good. Because, Derek, if you try to run or back out of this, I will make sure you go to prison for a very long time. The next few days were tense. Derek called the police and told them he had found new evidence that suggested I might be innocent. He was vague about the details, but it was enough to get the charges against me dropped pending further investigation. I also got a call from my lawyer saying that the bank account in my name had been closed and the money returned to the hardware store's account. But Derek hadn't told anyone in our family the truth yet. He was waiting until Sunday dinner, just like I had demanded. I spent the week preparing for what I knew would be the most dramatic family dinner in our history. I printed out copies of the handwriting analysis, the bank records, and Derek's confession, which I had recorded on my phone. I also wrote a letter to read to the family, explaining everything that had happened and how Derek had framed me. On Friday, Derek came to my house looking desperate. Sarah, I can't do this, he said. It will destroy our family. Our family is already destroyed, I replied. You destroyed it when you decided to frame me. But what about the hardware store? If everyone knows I stole money, no one will trust me to run it anymore. That's not my problem. Derek sat down on my couch and put his head in his hands. My whole life is over. Now you know how I felt when you had me arrested. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did. And now you have to face the consequences. Derek looked up at me with desperate eyes. What if I just leave town? What if I disappear? Then I'll call the police and have you arrested for fraud. And I'll make sure everyone knows you're a coward who ran away. Derek nodded slowly. Okay, I'll do it. I'll tell everyone on Sunday. Sunday dinner at my grandmother's house was always a big family event. All the aunts, uncles, and cousins would gather around the long dining table to share food and catch up on each other's lives. This Sunday was going to be different. I arrived early to help my grandmother with the cooking, just like I always did. She was so happy to see me. Sarah, dear, I'm so glad this whole mess with the police is getting cleared up, she said, giving me a hug. It will be cleared up very soon, Grandma. As the family arrived, I could see Derek getting more and more nervous. He kept checking his phone and looking toward the door like he was thinking about running. When everyone was seated for dinner, I stood up. Before we eat, I have something important to share with everyone, I said. The table went quiet. Everyone was looking at me with curious expressions. A few weeks ago, I was arrested for stealing money from our family business. Everyone believed I was guilty, and I lost my job, my boyfriend, and most importantly, your trust. I looked around the table at all the faces I loved. But I want you to know that I didn't steal anything. I was framed. My father frowned. Sarah, the police dropped the charges. You don't need to keep protesting your innocence. I'm not protesting my innocence, Dad. I'm announcing it. Because I have proof. I looked directly at Derek. Derek, it's time to tell everyone the truth. Derek looked like he was going to be sick. The entire family was staring at him, waiting for him to speak. I have something to confess, he said quietly. Speak up, Derek, my grandmother said. We can't hear you. Derek took a deep breath. I stole the money from the hardware store. Not Sarah. Me. The table erupted in shocked voices. Everyone was talking at once. What did you say? My uncle asked. I said I stole the money. I opened a bank account in Sarah's name and transferred the money there. Then I reported it stolen and blamed Sarah. My mother gasped. Derek, how could you do such a thing? Derek was crying now. The store was failing. We were about to lose everything. I thought I could borrow the money and pay it back before anyone noticed. But why did you blame Sarah? My father demanded. Because when the insurance company started investigating, I panicked. I thought if I blamed Sarah, they would pay the claim and I could use that money to pay back what I stole. My grandmother looked heartbroken. Derek, you destroyed Sarah's life to cover up your crime. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I stood up and pulled out the folder of evidence I had prepared. I have proof of everything Derek just said. Handwriting analysis showing he forged my signature. Bank records showing when the account was opened. And a recording of him confessing to me. I played part of the recording for the family. Derek's voice filled the room, admitting to everything. The silence that followed was deafening. The family sat in stunned silence as Derek's confession sank in. My grandmother was the first to speak. Derek, I am deeply disappointed in you, she said, her voice shaking. Not just for stealing, but for letting Sarah suffer for your crime. My uncle, Derek's father, looked devastated. Son, how could you do this to your own family? Derek couldn't even look at his father. I was desperate. I thought I could fix everything. By destroying Sarah's life, my mother asked angrily. She lost her job, her boyfriend, her reputation. We all turned our backs on her because of your lies. I know. I hate myself for it. My father stood up and walked over to me. Sarah, I owe you the biggest apology of my life. I should have believed you. I should have trusted you. He hugged me tightly, and I could feel him crying. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Can you ever forgive me? Of course, Dad. I understand why you believe the evidence. One by one, the rest of the family came to apologize to me. Everyone except Derek's parents, who were still staring at their son in shock. What happens now? My aunt asked. I looked at Derek, who was still crying. That depends on Derek. He needs to pay back every penny he stole, and he needs to make things right with the insurance company. And then, my uncle asked. And then we'll see if the family can forgive him. Derek looked up at me. Sarah, I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I'll pay back the money, I'll confess to the insurance company, I'll do anything. What about the police? My grandmother asked. I had been thinking about that question all week. If Derek does everything he promised, and if he truly makes amends, then maybe we can handle this within the family. Over the next few weeks, Derek worked frantically to make things right. He took out a loan against his house to pay back the money he had stolen. He called the insurance company and confessed that he had filed a false claim. Most importantly, he called everyone who had believed I was guilty and told them the truth. My boss at the insurance company where I used to work called me personally to apologize and offer me my job back. Marcus, my ex-boyfriend, sent me a long letter apologizing for not believing in me. But the damage had been done. I had learned who really had my back during the worst time of my life and who abandoned me when things got difficult. Derek also went to therapy to deal with the guilt and shame of what he had done. He seemed genuinely remorseful, but I wasn't sure if I could ever trust him again. The hardest part was watching how his confession affected the rest of the family. His parents were heartbroken. His mother couldn't stop crying, and his father barely spoke to him. The hardware store had to be sold to pay off the debts Derek had hidden. Our family business, which had been passed down for 3 generations, was gone. But at least everyone knew the truth now. My reputation was restored, and I was no longer a criminal in my family's eyes. The question was whether Derek and I could ever have a relationship again. 6 months later, life had settled into a new normal. I had gotten my job back, and Marcus and I were slowly rebuilding our relationship. He had to prove that he trusted me now, just like I had to prove my innocence. Derek had moved to another state to start over. He couldn't handle the shame of facing everyone in town who knew what he had done. Before he left, he came to see me one last time. "Sarah, I know I can never undo what I did to you," he said. "But I want you to know that I think about it every day. I hate myself for what I put you through." "I know you do, Derek. And I'm glad you finally told the truth." "Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me?" I thought about that question for a long time. "I think someday I might be able to forgive you. But I don't think I'll ever be able to trust you again." Derek nodded sadly. "I understand. I just want you to know that I'm trying to become a better person. I'm in therapy, and I'm trying to make amends with everyone I hurt." "That's good, Derek. That's what you should be doing." After Derek left, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. Sadness that our relationship was probably over forever, but relief that the truth was finally out. I had learned a lot about myself during this whole experience. I had learned that I was stronger than I thought, and that I could fight for my innocence even when everyone else had given up on me. A year later, I was in a much better place. Marcus and I were engaged, and I had been promoted at work. My family had learned to trust me again, and they were all very supportive of my engagement. The hardware store was gone, but my uncle had found a new job, and Derek's parents were slowly healing from the trauma of their son's betrayal. I sometimes wondered what would have happened if I hadn't investigated on my own. Would Derek have ever confessed? Would I have gone to prison for a crime I didn't commit? The thought scared me, but it also made me proud of myself for not giving up. I had learned that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who can hurt you the most. But I had also learned that the truth has a way of coming out, even when people try to bury it. Derek sent me a card on my birthday, apologizing again and wishing me well. I didn't respond, but I didn't throw it away either. Maybe someday I would be ready to have a conversation with him again. But for now, I was focused on my future. I had a wedding to plan, a career to build, and a life to live. The whole experience had taught me that I was capable of fighting for myself, even when the odds were stacked against me. That was a lesson I would carry with me forever. And if anyone ever tried to frame me again, they would quickly learn that I wasn't going to go down without a fight. 2 years after the worst period of my life, I was standing in a beautiful church in a white dress, getting married to Marcus. My family was there, beaming with pride and joy. During the ceremony, I looked out at all the faces of the people I loved. My parents, my grandmother, my aunts and uncles, all the people who had eventually stood by me when the truth came out. There was one face missing, though. Derek wasn't there. He had sent a card wishing me well, but we both knew it would be too painful for everyone if he attended. As Marcus and I exchanged vows, I thought about how this moment almost never happened. If I hadn't fought for the truth, I might be in prison right now instead of getting married. Marcus promised to always believe in me, no matter what. He had learned his lesson about trusting me, and I had learned to forgive him for his moment of doubt. When the minister pronounced us husband and wife, the whole church erupted in cheers. My father walked over and hugged me tightly. "I'm so proud of you, Sarah," he whispered. "You're the strongest person I know." At the reception, my grandmother gave a speech about how proud she was of me for never giving up on the truth. She said I was an inspiration to the whole family. As I danced with Marcus, I felt truly happy for the first time in years. I had survived the worst thing that had ever happened to me, and I had come out stronger. The nightmare was finally over, and my real life was just beginning. 5 years later, I was running my own accounting firm and living a successful, happy life with Marcus. We had a beautiful daughter named Emma, and life was good. One day, I got a call from Derek. He was still living in another state, but he wanted to talk to me. "Sarah, I know I don't deserve to ask this, but I'm getting married next month. I was wondering if you might consider coming to the wedding." I was surprised by the request. "Derek, I don't think that's a good idea." "I understand. But I wanted you to know that I've spent the last 5 years trying to become the person I should have been all along. I've been working with a therapist, and I've been volunteering at a legal aid clinic to help people who have been wrongly accused." That caught my attention. "Really?" I know I can never undo what I did to you, but I'm trying to use my experience to help other people. I tell my story to anyone who will listen, hoping it will prevent someone else from making the same mistake I did. I was quiet for a moment. Derek, I appreciate that you're trying to make amends. But I don't think I'm ready to come to your wedding. I understand. But Sarah, I need you to know something. What I did to you was the worst thing I've ever done, and I think about it every day. You handled it with more grace and strength than I ever could have. You're an amazing person, and I'm sorry it took me so long to realize that. After I hung up, I sat in my office thinking about the conversation. Derek sounded genuinely different. More mature, more thoughtful. But I still wasn't ready to forgive him completely. Maybe someday, but not yet. I looked at the photo of Emma on my desk and smiled. She would grow up knowing that her mother was someone who fought for the truth, even when it was hard. That was the legacy I wanted to leave her. Not the story of how I was betrayed, but the story of how I fought back and won. The truth had set me free, and I was never going to take that freedom for granted again.